In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Emeringen Foundation, Patricia Kind in honor of her brother, Henry Van Emeringen, Arcus Foundation, the estate of Richard W. Weiland, and by the annual support of In the Life members like you.
This month on In the Life, the intersection of art and social change. 4 stories showing how art has inspired the LGBT movement and its allies in the fight for full equality. Broadway organizing for marriage equality in New York.
I want the Broadway industry to be in the history books.
The play that presented gay life center stage.
You'll always be homosexual as well. Always, Michael.
Portraits that challenge convention.
What she shows us is normalcy, everyday people in everyday situations.
And the censorship of David Wojnarowicz.
They must stop editing us out of American history.
In the Broadway musical Hair, young activists band together for social change. Off stage, life imitates art. In 2008, 3 young Broadway professionals, actor Gavin Creel, actor Rory O'Malley, and production and management assistant Jenny Canellos, decided to take action in response to Proposition 8. Inspiring the Broadway community to raise their voice for equality, they organized Broadway Impact. Their approach? Keep it simple and fun, and with a singular focus: marriage equality in New York State.
I want our industry, I want the Broadway industry to be in the history books. I want Broadway Impact to be in history books, that we were there and we were part of it.
You know, that's where we came with the Broadway Impact. This is what Broadway's impact on this movement and hopefully other movements in the future.
What our website hopes to do is take all the information that's out there on all these other websites and everything and boil it down to one video or one action.
One thing.
One simple thing.
Action. What are we doing today to get this accomplished?
With the motto, action equals equality, Broadway Impact has inspired thousands of new activists in New York.
As a resident of New York City, I'm hopeful that
it started with a letter-writing campaign that delivered 3,000 letters to the New York State Senate.
I thought, well, I have a lot of friends in different Broadway shows, like why don't we go to each company of a show and say, hey, can you everyone write a letter? And that would be like 40 letters, say, per company.
If you want a law changed, you gotta knock on that door every day. You gotta send an email, make a phone call, write a letter. You gotta annoy these people.
The thing that I think is special about Broadway Impact is it's an organization that is really devoted to empowering the artists in the Broadway community. And I don't mean empowering them just to take care of themselves, but empowering them to be able to take care of all of us, to be able to actually lead.
For Gavin Creel!
A centerpiece of Broadway Impact is its monthly cabaret, where musicians can help celebrate the growth of the community's activism.
I'm still your baby.
Love, love, I do it for love.
To me, it's about human rights. It's a way to reach out to not only the gay community, but to the straight community as well, and raise awareness about really just wanting to gain equality.
I'm a big Broadway geek. I am the one who sits in the audience and enjoys the show, and I could spend my life standing in the wings. I felt the energy and the empowerment and said, I've got to be a part of this.
From inspiring people to call voters, to organizing a marriage equality rally,
You may say I'm a dreamer.
Broadway Impact clearly attracts a diverse group of activists.
That fun, that energy, that definitely helps motivate in the grassroots community. It definitely helps bring people together.
I got a phone call from Rory O'Malley saying, you know, there's going to be a rally outside the governor's office with the opposition, opposition to marriage equality.
People were angry that these people would show up on our turf, you know, and tell us that we can't have these rights in Manhattan. And we wanted to have something positive come out of the situation.
Very daunted by the task on some level. We all just looked at each other and said, okay, let's do it.
I was 2 blocks away, and I could still hear this like this scream in Midtown Manhattan. And I was like, that is something that literally these 2 white boys from Ohio and their straight friend literally had this idea and went, oh crap, here we go, let's try to make this happen. And it happened.
It happened in 10 days.
And it just snowballed into an unbelievable event with thousands of people. We had Cheyenne Jackson, Audra McDonald, the mayor, Cynthia Nixon, David Hyde Pierce. Each day, we would add someone to the list, and then more people would show up to volunteer.
When I met Gavin, when we started Hair, maybe he had just talked about the idea of Broadway Impact. He's done amazing things that are literally, you know, changing our country.
One of Broadway Impact's most exciting moments was mobilizing 1,400 activists and the cast of Hair for the National Equality March in Washington, D.C.
The march, there were so many young people there, and it's kind of awakened this spirit of activism in this next generation. And to be part of allowing that to happen is like the greatest honor you can imagine.
Like Gavin and Broadway Impact and everything, it's kind of like lit a fire in all of us. And I hope that it keeps going, and I hope to be a part of more things, yeah.
If all of their dreams are achieved, we not only are going to have a theater community that's active on this issue, we're going to have a theater community that wakens up to the idea that we have a really significant role to play in the cultural dialogue of the country.
It's going to take a visibility, people to stop whispering about it or shoving us in the corner or acting like it's a gay issue. It's a human rights issue. It's not a gay issue. Months from now or 9 years from now, this is just the beginning. We're going to be unstoppable. I know it. Yeah. I know it.
A year and a half after we filmed this interview, Broadway Impact is unstoppable in the fight for marriage equality.
Broadway supports equality!
Working side by side with the Empire State Pride Agenda, the Human Rights Campaign, Freedom to Marry, and All Out, they're helping organize the push to pass marriage equality in New York State this year. Governor Andrew Cuomo has promised to make a vote on this issue a top priority. In 1968, Mark Crowley's play, The Boys in the Band, swept both gay and straight audiences alike. This controversial work was adapted by Crowley into a 1970s film. Over 40 years later, Crayton Robey's documentary, Making the Boys, examines this seminal work and its place in gay history. The documentary has been called essential viewing by The Hollywood Reporter.
My inspiration for Making the Boys was just, I just look around today and I see that we have all these freedoms, and I feel that people don't really connect the dots. I think that the older generation and the younger generation really don't relate to each other. And I think a lot of that happened because of the AIDS epidemic. Our history is not taught in schools, and I just feel like our legacy should be preserved.
I don't know what Boys in the Band is. That's just what a bad gay, when you're like, what's a bad gay? Bad gay.
I haven't really heard of the Boys in the Band, so I know that's very embarrassing, but I'm this boy in this band, but I don't know otherwise.
The Boys in the Band is a play that was written by Mark Crowley in 1968.
It was tried out, you know, in a workshop, and then it was very cautiously moved off Broadway, and nobody knew whether it was going to work there or not.
Within a year, it had opened nationally and internationally. And this is all before Stonewall happened, which is so amazing. And what this piece of work did, because it was reviewed in the papers, it created a dialogue about homosexuality. Within that same year, he was approached by a couple different studios, and it was made into a major feature film.
I heard about Boys in the Band when I was probably in my early teens, so I was too young to actually go and see it, but it had caused quite a scandal as an out gay film. This was the life I couldn't even dream about at this point, because though I knew I was gay, I didn't know there was a future for me.
At that particular time, you go see the play, but then you go out for a drink that night and you could be arrested.
There was a period in American history not so long ago, some of us were alive, when gay people were virtually invisible.
In the 60s, gays were evil, they were nasty, they were twisted and psychotic, or they were pathetic. There was no middle ground.
I didn't know what I was going to write about, but, you know, what does one write about? One writes about what one knows, and that's one's life.
What the Boys in the Band does, it just documents that moment in history and that group of people that assembled at that birthday party and that were just dealing with their demons or not.
When I thought I had to do something and I started to work on the play, it was just reaching for a legal pad out of my briefcase and, you know, beginning to scribble some notes on a yellow legal pad. And day by day, you know, they kept growing and the pile got thicker and thicker.
From a historical perspective, we have to say that it was the most significant and the most important gay play in terms of like just advancing our causes because of the visibility that it gave us. People had their own personal experiences with the piece. Seeing these gay images of themselves was so important. But I think it's also overshadowed by the movement that had started, the gay liberation movement, where people, they could not really like these particular characters because they had to celebrate their freedom.
There were a lot of future gay activists sitting in the audience who were being imbued with the idea that this is something that we should be open about and proud of. You know, I say in the Gay Metropolis that the last speech, which most people thought was very self-hating.
But you'll always be homosexual as well. Always, Michael. Always. Until the day you die.
And in fact, that was a very liberating statement because that was finally an acknowledgement that this condition was not a choice or something that you could get over. This was who you were.
I like to call it a classic. I mean, it's something that we have as a culture, and it came around at a moment and just rescued us in a very, very special way.
In the Life, documenting the issues and people shaping the gay experience.
One day you'll appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Well, you do, but they'll appreciate it when they get older.
Good job, buddy. Okay, look at the camera.
Oh, perfect. This is so good. Okay. To me, I love photographing people in their own environment because it's like a set. It's like a stage. Everything in your house or your apartment, you've put there for a reason, and it says something about you. I am really sorry, guys. You're so good.
You smiling?
My name's Alix Smith. I am an artist, photographer. Right now I'm working on a project called States of Union, which focuses on gay and lesbian couples and families, playing off classical paintings in some way. I grew up on the Upper East Side of New York. I went to an all-girls Catholic private school. I always felt sort of out of place, which is why photography was so important. When I was coming out, there weren't any positive gay role models out there. Everyone, most of the people in movies either turned out to be straight, died a drug-induced death, or were a victim of hate crime.
The unfortunate problem with gay representation is you have extremes. Either everyone is elegant and perfect, or they're sluts and depraved and decadent. What she shows us is normalcy. Everyday people in everyday situations.
There was someone who told me a story that their parent had been very conservative. And he said, God, I wish I was just normal. And this idea that he was growing up thinking he wasn't normal, I found it very sad. It's hard growing up in a society where the stereotypes are so prevalent that you begin to believe them yourself. And I think that part of the project is to dispel those stereotypes and to allow people to embrace who they are.
A little smile.
How the shoots are set up is I contact the family and I give them about 20 images that I think might work. And because portraiture is so much a collaboration between the artist and the sitter, I want them to have a say. So they're given the images and I ask them, pick which one you think would most describe you or is most akin to your family. For them, I chose the Renoir. The photo doesn't necessarily end up looking like the painting. It's just a jumping off point.
Well, I just saw the dog and I was like, this is the one that had a dog and it had 2 kids and had, you know, it only had 1 mom, but I figured, you know, we'll just add another. I actually showed it to the boys. I was like, what do you think?
Which one do you want to be?
Yeah, and the dog was like, that one.
Oh, man.
When we got married, we really decided that we would never sort of leave it to chance anymore for people to know that we were a couple and that we were a family. We just have to treat ourselves as full human beings and never compartmentalize any piece of who we are. And that's exactly what she's doing. She just is capturing the fullness of what a family can look like.
All art is narcissistic, essentially. So you make something because it interests you. So this idea that I was gay, that I didn't really see a lot of images that were like me, and sort of wanting to create those images. I mean, that's where it started from.
I think anyone who's going to enjoy these pictures will spend a great deal of time trying to figure out the details, because once you get past the fact that they're supposed to be art, we really only care about the people in the pictures. And we're trying to read their stories. We're trying to see how their stories are similar to our stories.
We're a group of people that don't have a visual legacy. And I think it has a lot to do with sort of psychologically how we see ourselves. Because when you open an art history book and you're straight and you can see these images that is sort of defining who you are or what group you fit into, and being gay or lesbian, you don't have those images. So part of the concept is starting off with these paintings, starting off with this language of portraiture, and from there building our own visual legacy.
There is this long history of art being a device to bring the public's attention to things that might not be right in front of them, might not be surrounding them.
Photography's always been used for social change. I mean, if you look at Dorothea Lange, for instance, the migrant mother image that's so famous, I mean, that image created a whole movement to help those farmers. By the government, by volunteers, by donations. Even Annie Leibowitz's image of Demi Moore when she was pregnant, it was the first time you saw a pregnant woman on the cover of a magazine. And at that point, it was something that you covered up, that you were not ashamed of, but you didn't flaunt it. And from there, women started to embrace pregnancy and their bodies, and it changed people's perceptions.
It's validating on so many levels and educating.
and thought-provoking. So the more people that think, I think that's where change comes from.
It's more subversive than the most overtly political work out there because the message is delivered so quietly and so with such a gentle touch that you don't know that, you know, that your ideas might have shifted until after the fact.
I think photography purpose is basically to catalog, to show you what is there. And her project will be a major cataloging of contemporary gay families.
People hate what they don't know, which is why it's really important to show people who they're voting against or who this body is, who this community is. Because by keeping us in the dark, it just perpetuates the hatred, because if you don't have an image that dispels stereotypes, then those stereotypes grow and grow.
I don't want you to burn in hell. I'm really joyful in the presence of the Almighty God. You bring hate. You bring hate.
In the Life, documenting the issues and people shaping the gay experience. On December 1st, 2010, the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery stunned the world, and the art world in particular, by announcing the removal of Fire in My Belly by the late artist David Wojnarowicz.
Someone from the press called and that the Smithsonian had pulled a piece, and what do we think of it? I was thinking, why?
It didn't surprise me. What surprised me was that that was the image, the Christ on the cross with the ants.
We have freedom of speech in this country, and I am profoundly disappointed.
It's not a finished piece. The film was edited and sound was added from David's archives, from an audio tape, and that was what was pulled.
What we decided we would do was to take a tape that David had made of an ACT UP demonstration, in which you can hear actually David's own voice protesting. And we ran that as the sound.
The video, Fire in My Belly, was part of the Smithsonian's exhibit, Hide Seek, the first national art show covering gender and sexual difference in American portraiture.
One of the animating ideas behind the show is that we've been looking at these images for, in some instances, over a century. But we haven't talked about the specifically LGBT content of these works. I'm incredibly grateful that the National Portrait Gallery, they said finally, this is an extension of our purpose and our promise, and I applaud them for that. They also completely screwed up in taking the video out of the exhibition.
Conservative lawmakers and the Catholic League have called it hate speech.
The controversy was started by Catholic League President Bill Donahue, who claimed that Fire in My Belly's depiction of a crucifix with ants on it was anti-Catholic hate speech.
When I heard who started it, this Donahue character from the Catholic League, it didn't surprise me. His whole life is saying the Catholic Church is being persecuted.
They're a right-wing fringe group. They're anti-Semitic, they're homophobic. But it looks like it's representative of the Catholic Church when, in fact, of course, it has absolutely no relationship. There's a perverse sign of progress in all of this, because it used to be, the old game was, right, there's a queer, excise it. That's a politics of diminishing return. So what they've done is they had to invent a red herring, religious hate speech.
It was an interesting choice for a piece to be censored from that show, because I think, you know, they saw crucifix with ants, oh, let's pull that. But they didn't know anything about the artist.
During his life, David often fought against censorship, even incorporating it into his art. AIDS also influenced him.
When I put my hands on your body, on your flesh, I feel the history of that body.
Like much of his work, Wojnarowicz made Fire in My Belly as a response to the AIDS epidemic.
David's work changed a lot after he was diagnosed and after people and friends started dying.
I think a lot of people think David was, well, they know him through his work, which is very strong and very tough. We were together for about 7 years, and until he died in 1992. He wasn't just a painter, he was a writer, he was a photographer, he was a doodler, he would make things. It was in his blood. I mean, I don't know, it's not like somebody says, oh, maybe I'll become an artist, He was an artist.
The federally funded Smithsonian is coming under fire this morning.
After the Smithsonian removed Fire in My Belly, Republican lawmakers began attacking the Smithsonian's funding and the show Hide Seek.
Really perverted, sick stuff.
What really upset me the most was this future Speaker of the House, Bonner, getting involved and threatening the museum with their funding.
They won the midterm elections, and they think this is their moment. And they're trying to reignite a culture war because culture wars have paid off in the past. What's happened now is that the museums and the art world have broadly supported us, and this film is being shown in venues all across the country and indeed throughout the world.
At tonight's meeting, I think part of the focus is put the piece back. By putting it back, it makes people realize a mistake and apologize to the legacy of this great artist.
While we're protesting, I also want to, with an eye on the future, why have we given a free pass to our cultural institutions and not held them to a standard that they must include our lives, or to put it another way, stop editing us out of American history?
Thank you for watching In the Life. To learn more about the issues in tonight's program, or to tell us your thoughts about the show, text ITL to 69866 on your mobile phone, and visit itlmedia.org to watch more web exclusives on art and social change.
Sam didn't think that tattooing, I mean, he really actively discouraged me, and I guess, I've said that other places, that he said it's a dying art, it doesn't have any, future, and, you should not pursue this. He really didn't want to help me. And I thought the complete opposite. I thought this is just this totally undeveloped thing that has tremendous kind of beauty and fascination and weirdness.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation, Patricia Kind in honor of her brother, Henry Van Ameringen, Arcus Foundation, the estate of Richard W. Weiland, and by the annual support of In the Life members like you.